It's Wednesday, October 25th, and it's 5 o'clock, and I call the meeting to order. Roll call, please. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. And I do note that a quorum is present. Before we go to the approval of minutes, I'd like to introduce Dean Dave Cohen, the Lynn University College of Aeronautics, who recently joined, and he just wanted to be here and say hello to all of us. So welcome to the airport and to the community. Approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 20th regular meeting?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries. Agenda changes, number 3. Any changes, Ms. Bennett?
No, sir.
Public requests. If any member of the public wishes to provide a comment on any item, the time to do so is now. Please complete a public comment card identifying the item upon which you wish to be heard and provide it to Ms. Landers. The public comment cards are located in the back of the room. Each member of the public wishing to comment will be provided with 5 minutes to do so. The chair reserves the right to move the public comment opportunity on a specific agenda item to the point in the agenda when that item is to be considered and/or to extend the allotted times per speaker. Ms. Landers, are there any public requests? Item 5, consent agenda. Chair notes there are no items on the consent agenda. Item 6, federal, state, and municipal input. Ms. Bennett, any input here?
None tonight.
Item 7, financial reports. Ms. Budd, would you like to introduce this item, please?
Sure. I'll give you an overview and then turn it over to Rob for his much more in-depth analysis. So first, the financial report that's before you in each of the packets that you received and may have in front of you represents an approximate year-end balance subject to final accounts receivable and payable adjustments. All accounts will be reconciled and audited by the authority's external auditor. And I understand this audit process is already underway. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Robert will provide more details, as I said, on the various accounts, but overall, despite some unexpected expenses that the authority incurred this year, the financial statement looks solid. We do have some variances in revenues for the year related to higher than expected fuel sales and customs clearings, which are hard to predict. We do the best we can in these predictions, certainly trying not to over predict, but certainly don't want to under predict. That has ramifications as well. On the expense side, we were able to realize some savings, and it's important to note this, and we can delve more deeply into some of these savings, but sometimes our bankers look at us and say, oh my goodness, how come we're always under? Does that mean that we are not projecting appropriately? So there are times where you want to leave yourself a bigger cushion, but it's important to note that the savings that we see when we are under expectations also come from facility savings, cutbacks, and other unexpected types of savings. Some of them in the facilities maintenance at the air traffic control tower and on the airfield with fewer emergency repairs. So that's always good news. Marketing and special events were also down, and a portion of the expenses this year were offset by state grant funds. So as you know, we are very successful in our grant funding attainability. Some of it we anticipate and we expect, some of it we don't. So when we get things that we didn't expect, it's like a halo, right? It's what they call in New Orleans lagniappe. So we have benefited by some lagniappe. With that, I'll turn it over to Rob. Thank you.
September 30th, 2023. So as we see in your report, total operating revenues year to date are approximately $7 million, which is 6.6% above budget year to date. And total operating expenses year to date are approximately $4.8 million, which is down approximately 7.1% of budget year to date. And net income before depreciation is approximately 2.2. The revenue summary, $7 million. So on behalf of the airport management and Secretary Treasurer, we expect the September financial report to
Any questions? I'm waiting for a motion to approve the September 2023 financial report.
So move.
Second? Your second?
I'll second that, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Rob. Item 8, tenant reports and requests. Atlantic Aviation special event request. Travis, you have this one. Mr. Chair. The request from Atlantic Aviation and Rivera Air Charter to hold a special event on the evening of December 4th of this year, at 7 to 11 p.m. They're seeking authority approval to host an event in conjunction with FAU and Noble Capital Markets, kicking off NobleCon 19 at FAU, of which the keynote speaker for that event is the former President Bush. This event will be in Rivera's Hangar 9, as all the previous ones have been, and they expect approximately 300 people with valet parking provided landside and pending the receipt of all the required security and safety plans, we recommend the approval of resolution number 102723. For a motion to approve the request. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item B, Atlantic Aviation on behalf of Boca Suites LLC, Stoppel request.
Thank
Scott?
you, Mr. Chair. Boca Suites LLC operates the Fairfield Inn, and they are a subtenant of Atlantic Aviation. Early last week, staff received a request from the subtenant for a master lease and a ground lease estoppel in conjunction with some financing that they're trying to acquire by the end of the month. Due to the timing, legal didn't have time to review prior to posting. So we did post them as they were presented to us in the packet. Legal has since reviewed the master lease estoppel and made some suggested changes, which were reported to both Atlantic and to Waterford Group. They're still in the process of reviewing the ground lease estoppel. Both of the estoppels are in substantially the same form as the ones approved by the board back in 2013 when Boca Suites LLC acquired the hotel property. And we'll note that due to the fact that we just got legal review back this afternoon, Atlantic Aviation hasn't had a chance to review with their legal yet. So they'll obviously potentially have some additional suggestions to legal. But we drafted a resolution, which is before you, resolution 12-30-23, that would essentially authorize the issuance of both estoppels and delegate authority to the executive director to basically effectuate any changes so long as they're in substantially the same form as what has been presented.
And with concurrence from you.
Of course.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Item 9, Executive Director and staff.
Move on the
So we
motion.
need to vote on the resolution.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
staff recommends approval of resolution 12-30-23, authorizing the issuance of the estoppels and delegating authority to legal and executive director to effectuate the estoppels.
So moved.
Second. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item 9, Executive Director and staff reports, noise abatement operations summary for September. Hannah, you're up.
Before you would be in operation. From September of last year. Bid deliveries were down 3% compared to September last year, but gas deliveries were up 11%. There were 2 different households that filed noise concerns during the month, most of which were bids through the online web portal. During the month of September, Customs had 65 aircraft clearings, which is down from 73 total aircraft clearings for September 2022. There were no vessel clearings during this past month. 65 aircraft arrived from a total of 14 different countries, and there were 13 after-hour clearings during the month, of 10 of which 31 days when the facility is normally closed. This concludes the operations report for the month of September. We have to answer any questions.
Anything for Hannah? Okay, if you want to keep going for item B, quarterly safety management system program update.
The Last week, we met with Mr. James Holden, to review the report which is being presented to you today. We'd love for you to share your feedback on our report so we make the information presented to suit your needs. So with that, I'll go ahead and start us off and review our inspections. So during the last quarter, we had 140 facility inspections, 181 total airfield inspections. We also had 6 EMATS inspections and 6 inspections as well. During this past quarter, we had 21 work orders issued, all of which had been completed and closed out. We have decided to break down work orders into 4 categories: airfield, facility, airside, and landside. The idea behind this is to identify the different types of work order by facility type and location. During the last quarter, there were no aircraft incidents. However, we did have 2 disabled aircraft. We also had 1 bird strike, which did not result in any aircraft damage. And we did have 1 report of property damage during the last quarter. So now we get to talk about safety promotion. So as the board is aware, the SMS project is grant funded. And one of the 4 pillars of the SMS is promotion. That said, all promotional material presented to you today is covered by the grant. So we have begun publishing a semi-annual newsletter. Hopefully every board member has received the latest issue from back in July. In this newsletter, we get to highlight safety-related topics from around the airport. In the last issue, we highlighted our recent firefighter training courses, shared tips on how to report a safety concern, and communicate how to all collectively contribute to the safety culture. To kick off our safety management systems, we hosted Safety Week for all of our tenants. Some of the events we hosted included a virtual fog walk, CPR and AED certification course, and an SMS safety quiz. We had a very positive reception to the rollout of the program and will continue hosting an annual Safety Week. So one of the activities that tenants got to participate in during Safety Week was signing a safety pledge. Tenants got to sign it electronically and get an entry into our prize drawing to be held at the end of Safety Week, and we'll touch on in just a minute. So for safety related events, most airports who have multiple runways get to shut down one to do a fog walk. We only have 1 runway, so we had to get a little creative, and we used augmented reality to do our fog walk. The reception was very well, and the goal was just to find as much fun. I think there were 8 or 9 pieces in total that tenants got to click through and identify. So to conclude Safety Week, we made a post on social media to congratulate the winners of our prize drawings. The winners were from Signature, Boca Aircraft Maintenance, and Go Rounds, and they all got to take home a battery boost. So they were very excited about that. So what we've got upcoming. So in the next quarter, you will see a creation of some PSAs, which will be filmed here at the airport and will be used for new employees at the leaseholds. And it'll include topics such as how to drive on the AOS, how to report a hazard, and more. We will also be ordering some keychains as further promotional materials, and we'll be launching our safety awards program, which recognizes the efforts of anyone who demonstrates outstanding safety strategies or efforts here at BCT. Those who receive the safety award will get a pin and as a commemorative token. So that concludes the SMS quarterly presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Lots of questions.
Yeah, a couple of questions, please. First of all, very thorough program. Did we file this program and execute it in-house, or did we have some outside assistance from our agency?
We have a separate agency that we contracted with
yes,
about
yes.
a year ago because the communications firm that we currently have was not engaged at the time. So we did a separate procurement specifically for this project, for the safety promotion aspect.
Okay.
For the promotion aspect of it, which is, as Hannah mentioned, one of the pillars of SMS. The overall SMS program we developed in-house. This is the second step in the program. The first step was a gap analysis that was conducted in 2017. So the SMS implementation is what all of this is about, which includes the promotion. The software that Hannah used to create the report and that our ops team uses every day was acquired as part of this program through that grant that Hannah mentioned as well.
Good.
All of it is under the grant funding.
Two more quick questions, if you don't mind to follow up. Hannah, please explain to us what our esteemed board member is doing on page 4. Done? Are you?
Or did the aircraft landed safely?
How about the bird?
Yeah.
Mitigation techniques that we use to mitigate some of the bird factors.
You didn't actually hurt an animal.
No, it's all pyrotechnics. We fire out, get scared away.
And just one final, I'm looking on page 2 of your inspections report, and we have facility inspections, 140. So I look down at the footnote there, facilities inspected include air traffic control tower, et cetera, et cetera. Are these self-inspections? Are we inspecting ourselves on these 140 times, or is there an independent entity that does that?
Yeah, so that's us. So every day, as part of our we go to all of our facilities, and on our SMS software, there's a checklist that we can go through and check everything from the EC to the carpets to AWAS, the tower. And so we do that every day.
And then you keep track and go, oops, here, we
Yes.
faltered here.
Yeah, so if we do find an issue, say their AC is broken, right? So we can create a work order in the SMS software. Initiate a work order, and then we can keep track on how long that work order takes to be completed.
All right, thanks. These are all systems that were done previously on paper. And then we developed our own tracking in-house software, the iAuditor functions. So this is a much more robust database that has a lot of fail safes in place as well, including, documenting when something happened and how long it took to get done.
And apropos of that, is there any kind of metric that you have that you can track? Okay, here's an old way we did it manually. Here's the way that we're doing it now, automated, and the time for completion is reduced by 50% and the number of errors. So what kind of metric do you have?
Yeah, that's all the type of data that we're working to collect and analyze and develop. This is why we wanted to bring this to you in its early infancy, so you can see sort of what some of the capabilities of the system are. But once we collect the data, we'll be able to do some of that analysis. This is our early first order
But to do
report.
the analysis, you'll need baseline, meaning before you had the system. We have that.
We should have that, right, Travis? Going back to, we do, but we had the paper and then the iAuditor. And
Your capability to previous actual flow.
Right,
And
right.
yes, that type of thing. This, we can also edit things after the fact. Why does this work exponentially longer than others? Our system back, waiting on outside contractors, like this station house.
Great. Thank you.
What it does is just give us a one consolidated database for all of that information to be contained. And it's portable, so they're out on the field. They don't have to come back and look through a paper file. Everything is contained within the application, which is on their phones or iPads or laptops.
Because it's all tracked, it also allows us to do trend analysis. So if we're seeing a bunch of lights are going out in succession in one particular portion of the taxiway, well, that might mean there's a larger issue in the cabling or the transformers or something like that. So that's something that we didn't have the capability to do, at least not in a reasonably easy way previously.
There's a lot. The sort of area that you have requires same thing
Over.
5 times more.
Great.
Mel, you had a question?
With the prevalence of jet traffic, what are we doing for actual fire prevention?
So every day, and it gets logged into our SMS software as well, so every day, at least minimum once per day, one of the ops staff will go out and do a complete runway and taxiway inspection. And that is along with security's runway and taxiway inspection that they complete per shift.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, how do we get an airport bucket hat?
Airport.
A bucket hat, they're on the promotion page there.
Is she getting here? Change. We can give it to you.
Then you have to wear it.
Ride with it. Yeah.
Can you give us any information on the two disabled?
That's weird.
So yeah, here's in the public.
Anything else? I just want to say, I think this is a very thorough, well put together program. And then at some point, it might be a good idea to enter this in a contest with maybe one of the airport associations or a national safety group or something. Because it seems like it's really off on a great start. You guys have done a lot of terrific work and got some great ideas.
Especially traffic now.
I was going to take that in, Mr. Chair, the company that built the back end of the software for us. What is it? Epic Systems. They actually entered the SMS map that they built as part of the system into a national competition at a recent FAA conference. And they actually won. If you look at it, I think it's the last page of the report, maybe the second to last page. It has a picture of their map and the maps that they beat out.
I think what Mr. Chair is also referring to might even be outside the aeronautical sphere.
Yes.
So yes, you could there, but there are multiple public relations and communications entities and professional associations that you could enter this in regardless of what sector we're in. So.
And we did reach out, thanks to that, your suggestion, Chair, to the firm that's helping us with the promotional aspect of it. And they first of all were very happy with the feedback that you are satisfied with what they've been doing on our behalf and helping assisting us with. But they also indicated that they would do some research and get back to us on potential award programs, particularly safety oriented ones. So it's not necessarily airport industry.
Yeah, and nothing is more important than safety.
And if you would like to come in and Mr. Folden was able to join us for a more in-depth presentation on the capabilities of the software. If you'd like to come in and see exactly what that looks like, just let us know. It's a pyrotechnic, just a big noise maker.
Thank you, Hannah. Item C, airfield and roadway markings contract award. Travis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The RFP was released in July and closed in August of this year. We advertised for the contract consists of fixed pricing for farming materials for airfield and roadway marking, parking lots, and things of that nature. We received two bids by the deadline, and Roberts Traffic Marking, which is also a local firm, was selected as the highest ranked bid by the executive director on the ranking meeting on October 2nd. This contract would basically have on retainer a contractor ready to go if we needed runway markings, touch up parking lots, roadways. Now we have to maintain a portion of airport road and keep it looking in tip top shape. And it's fixed pricing for a number of years, so we don't have to go out and get multiple quotes and bids and pricing goes up every 2 months, that type of thing. So unfortunately, the representative from Roberts, Lisa, the owner, had to back out at the last minute. She had a commitment that she couldn't make it, but airport management recommends approval of resolution number 102823, awarding the airfield roadway markings contract for Roberts Traffic Markings.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Travis, you can keep going with item D, airport projects updates. This working?
Here. Right. First one on the list here, I'll just do a brief highlight of everything for the personal packet. I only have a few because a lot of them haven't even started yet, so we don't have anything ready to show. So we've been closing down the airport 5 nights a week for the past couple months here for the airfield lighting rehab project, which is basically replacement of every bit of airfield electric the airfields, all the lights, all the signs, underground cabling, regulators involved, power system, you name it. So we also had to just unveil a couple weeks ago our new taxiway nomenclature change. So the taxiway Papa primary is now taxiway Papa, and we're keeping FAA's latest advisory circular data the exits to the runway renamed as well, so. Hopefully, everything went pretty smooth. I didn't see too many, the first day or two, the controllers and a couple of the pilots, were stumbling over themselves a little bit, including me. Everyone, seemed to go pretty well. This is just a couple little pics of, some of the work. It's night work entirely, so anytime we have to do major work here, it has to be at night, so we close everything down, so. Part of this whole project too is not just the signage, but every new sign is getting a new concrete, base because they're changing the, direction of some of them, and the signs are getting a little bit smaller. So it's not just putting a new sign on an old base, it's literally bringing in a concrete pad. Why
are the signs getting smaller? You guidelines?
Well,
Get bigger.
one of the issues we've run into in the past here is with the taxiway widenings in the past couple of years to try to accommodate some of the larger aircraft, especially during the TFR periods after we had quite a few of them get stuck. That was reduced some of the island sizes to fit all the current larger size signs, and it also takes up additional potential drainage. So there was one smaller size that was still within advisory circular standards that we could go to that fit and also bought us a little bit more real estate to where we have a little more clearance for the wingtips. Now that the geometries have changed and aircraft are getting larger, and try to avoid or mitigate a potential issue. And also potentially buy back maybe about 10 square inches of drainage per second. There's a little extra grass now that we can absorb some rain. Let's see, there's one more. Oh yeah, there's one of the new signs installed with one of our feathered friends enjoying the new perch.
Is that a?
Checking the work. It's surprising. They didn't come to check out what's going on tonight. That's a milestone.
Aviators.
Yeah.
They approve. And probably those. No pictures as of yet, running down the list. Just as a reminder, we're currently trying to wrap up the master plan process, and next month's board meeting will be preceded by the 3 p.m. workshop for the master plan. Provide any final comments. That's also public. So we look forward to hosting everyone for that one. Next one down the list, observation area. They just recently forwarded on the 90% set of plans, which is currently under review, as well as a maximum guaranteed pricing list. So a set price not to exceed. And currently the city is in the process of reviewing some of the plans and providing feedback. We had a successful meeting with some of the city officials via Zoom last week, just to go over some of their comments about foliage and things of that nature. We currently have an active permit for Go Tortoises and Owl relocation that is just waiting on construction.
Do we know when there'll be like a ribbon cutting groundbreaking or anything like that?
We're hoping sometime in the very near future, as soon as we get some more feedback and approval from the city, we can forward on to the 100% plan set, and they can start breaking the ground.
All right.
Question.
Yes.
Next question.
Yes.
So the observation area, we started that, but I can't even imagine what the cost of it is going up. Started it what it is. Any idea?
Yeah.
Twice?
Yes, it's doubled.
Just over $1 million. You may recall at the last board meeting in September, the guaranteed maximum price was approved. So it was that price, which I think it was $1,049,000, something like that is the maximum price. So that was significantly higher than the last estimate that we brought to the board back in last spring, I believe, spring.
Earlier this year when we
Yeah.
accepted the grant, so we have about $870,000 in grant funding available in the project from DOT. To cover 80% up to that amount, and the balance above that 20% matching share the airport authority would cover. So the last time we brought it to you, as Scott mentioned, was a revised estimate up to that $800-something thousand range, which included the 80% grant funding.
The scope of the project though changed as well, right? So.
Being and the biggest ticket, the two big ticket items that have resulted in price increases since the big meeting that we had here about 2 years ago, where the canopy was selected, were the cost of the canopy and concrete. So there's a lot more concrete. That was a scope change. that was added in the final engineer's design concepts and the 30%. And that's been the moving target for the contractor to try to finalize the price. The biggest moving target with regard to the timing has been the fact that when we initiated the project, we didn't anticipate, based on conversations, that we would have to go through a protracted city review and permitting process. Unfortunately, we're in a city review and permitting process that was not part of the bargain, if you will, was not anticipated. We have gotten great response from the city through their planning review and through city staff comments, but there was a process that we did not anticipate because we were under the impression we were going to be able to do that. So soon as, so we submitted for planning review this week. And
Should
we
be
have a
on
meeting
the
in November.
November 14th, Planning and Advisory Review Committee agenda.
Which point the permits will be issued.
Great, you want to keep going there?
Next on the list is our stormwater management road project. It's kind of two different projects, but going to be having to happen at the same time just for the nature of it. If anyone's familiar with our perimeter road here to get the aircraft tower, ever been driven down, it is really narrow and pretty much too narrow for safe egress and ingress of emergency vehicles. Trying to get a fire engine or ambulance down there or emergency to the tower could be a problem, and they'd have to cross the one-way. So we're looking to widen that to the entire stretch, and in conjunction with that, also potentially deal with some of the stormwater ponds on this side of the field to see if there's different methods of capturing and filtering water, or maybe we could fill some of it in to make it a little more level adjacent to the runway safety area, as well as any potential. We're investigating any area along Airport Road. If there's a way to capture some of the stormwater and build on top of a couple of ponds instead of having it open. And that would just open up a little bit more leasable land in the future. You might not be able to put a building on it, but you can put a parking lot on it that your building can get bigger. So we're currently, for the last couple of weeks, have a survey crew out every day doing a survey for the project. So they feel moving around with the beloved survey states trying to get the initials. Yeah. And next one down is the board remembers at our September meeting, we awarded a contract to All Florida Contracting for the ATC and electrical vault generator replacement project. The contractor is currently in the process of submitting all the, basically the generators themselves for approval for the engineers, plus all the ancillary equipment and all that. And once final approval is given on all the design, an order will be placed, and then we end up waiting. And the current lead time, I believe, is 12 to 14 months on the generator set. So there won't be any pretty pictures of that in the project's update for some time.
Yeah, TBD.
Yeah, TBD. And once we give the approval, it's just, well, thank you, and we'll see you in about a year. So, but once they're in, it should only be a matter of weeks to actually install them. The next one I do have photos up, just a quick little blurb. I know we touched on it previous, but the Atlantic Aviation redevelopment actually has a few photos to go through. That was now where they knocked the building down, and that is the construction of their new fuel farm. That was them pouring concrete for the foundation of the pads to house the new tanks. And that's some of the new tanks going in a couple weeks ago when they were pushing them all up. I believe the majority of the tanks and some of the equipment is in, and now they're building out the ancillaries, the pumping, some of the metering equipment, secondary containment, that type of thing. So at least there's a little something to show picture wise of pushing things. And yes, there was a FAA approved flag on top of the crane at all times. So next one on the list is just something that's upcoming. The plans is a noise exposure map update. We last did a contour map update in 2017 to evaluate the changes in the noise geometry, and since the last Part 150 noise study was done in 2008. Grant for this is expected in January of the upcoming year, and this would basically take into account the new fleet mix with the newer, some of the larger, but also newer design aircraft currently actually getting quieter. So we're excited to see just how that actually end up shrinking the noise exposure map once again. So that once the grant hits January, we'll be getting a tax authorization going forward with that. And last but not least is the sustainability management plan, which also is expected to release a grant January 4. This will basically develop sustainability policy and identify and analyze any sustainability categories at the airport and any measurable sustainability goals and environmental realm.
Very good. Any questions for Travis on that very thorough report? Yes, Ms. Bud?
Question on the master plan. So I know we have a workshop coming up. Can we expect in this master plan from Ricardo or from staff to take a look at the capital items and their projections? So I'm not talking about noise exposure, map updates, projects, because I just feel like we're on top of those and, you know, we follow those fairly well. But what I personally don't have that clear line of sight, and maybe others do, maybe staff does, but it's taking a look at every capital expenditure that we might have, every hard item. And look at, here's its potential life expectancy. Here's how much it's going to cost. And here's when you're going to need to pay for that. So that we would have a bird's eye look and be able to say, hey, within the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to need X millions of dollars. Now, and then of course you worry about where you get it from, grants. I said we have a pretty good track record there. But there are so many, as we look at this, there are so many items that you go, how much does it cost to replace that? And you're just flabbergasted by it. So is that going to be part of it? And it seems like in snapshot form, like a grid that goes, here are the 25 things that we have on property.
Yes.
Here's when we got it. Here's its life expectancy. Here's what, you know, well, then here's how much it's going to cost. And we're going to see that.
There is a financial analysis. There's a capital improvement plan program for the next 5, 10, and 20 years that is outlined.
Okay.
As
It
well-
tells us the lifespan of the accelerator, I mean, the generator.
No, it doesn't. It's not. We do have a separate facilities management plan that we developed and we update. I think in fact we have a plan to update it in the next 3 or 4 years, 2 years. But we do currently utilize exactly that internally. There's something we developed in 2017, I think 16 timeframe, which is exactly that life cycle costing and replacement. The master plan looks at the infrastructure improvements, things that would need to be done in the next 20 years, and establishes a 20-year capital improvement program to develop those
Can
projects.
we overlay those two? So you're saying,
Sure.
you know, we do, one is kind of business as usual, and here's the other one as part of the master plan, but it's still times, you know, you need to overlay them to see the snapshot in time. This year, this quarter, these next 5 years, it's like, well, this was on the master plan. Yeah, but we got 3 things that are going to be obsolete. So it just,
Yes, it feeds into it, absolutely, because things like, you know, the useful life of the pavement that we're tracking in the
Right.
facilities management would then turn into a capital improvement plan, program that's in the master plan, for which there's a financial analysis and cost, et cetera. So yes, they do, there is that overlap and they do, one feeds into the other. The master plan follows a very prescribed federal process. So some of those nuances we sort of have to build in on our own or extract and then develop separately, which is sort of why we did that facilities management. But there's a capital improvement program chapter that is required in the checklist of things that you follow in the master plan, as well as a financial analysis that says exactly that. This is when things are going to be done. Here's how much they cost, and here's how much, you know, these are the funding sources that the airport authority will need from state, federal, and local.
and again, my only request is that they be
Yes,
together so that we
absolutely.
can see it holistically. rather than-
And part of what we've done that we did a few years ago and that are updating is a financial model. So part of what we currently utilize and would be utilizing and updating and is already programmed in with these capital projects that are in the master plan is that financial model. So we can enter in, you know, what if scenarios and automatically graph them, just like what you're describing. And it incorporates our facilities management plan, as well as our current budget, our revenue sources. I think you saw it.
Financial model, or did that come from condo?
We built it with them. This was a task authorization that we used when we were through condo, but we developed when we were developing the EMAS systems, since that was going to be the most expensive project at the time. It was a $13.5 million project. So we said, how are we going to pay for this? Because there were some nuances with state funding, whether we would be eligible or not. So we developed it then, and we continued to update it.
but the model is flexible enough to feed into it other items. not
Yes,
just
it tracks our budget. And they used that model to plug in the factors for that are in the master plan. Projects that are in the master plan are current revenue streams, current operating expenses, and current and future capital expenses as
Who
well.
handles that? Does Ricardo update that quarterly, monthly, or do we do that? Staff does that, or?
He does back there. It's not, our finance and administration director, they provide us the tool. Initially, we worked with them, obviously, to develop it. And when we needed to update it for the master plan, we worked with them to update it. They do the back end, and then it's a number spreadsheet. We will bring it to, that is one of the deliverables, the finalizing the update in the master plan. Once that's done, we'll bring it to you and show it to you in a presentation, so you actually can play with it and say, what if 3 tenants go bankrupt and you have no revenue? What happens then?
Just worst case scenarios.
Exactly.
And the capital improvement program was one of the sections that was completed since the last board workshop, so that's why you haven't seen that yet. It will be part of the November one. It's the point of the grants and the funding. One of the reasons we do the master plan is that in order to get FAA grants, the project has to be reflected in the master plan, reflected in the AIP. So if it's not in that master plan, it's not in the airport layout plan, you cannot get federal funding for it.
Very good. Anything else for Travis? Thank you for that wonderful update. Item E, amendment to FY 2024 operating budget. Rob, you got this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on October 11th, Airport Management received a notice from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection that the computer systems and some of the related networks associated with that needed to be upgraded. And this process is going to involve CBP acquiring the equipment and then the airport authority reimbursing them that cost. So the impact to this current year's budget, which just approved the other month there, is approximately $100,000. The CBP also provided an estimate for some annual costs going forward with this as well, which is about $14,500. They will be accounted for obviously in the upcoming budget years. We were informed that similar upgrades will have to happen in the future, maybe 3 to 5 years or so. So based on this, these will be programmed in the future budget years during when we expect them to occur. So with that, Airport Management does recommend approval of resolution 10223, approving an amendment to fiscal year 2024 operating budget in the amount of $100,000 to account for the cost of upgrading the existing computer network communication systems of the airport's customs and border protection facility.
Looking for a motion?
Move.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Rob. Item F, legislative updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's quite a bit of information in the memo, a bunch of different items, so I won't go into everything. But as you know, staff does follow closely many state and federal issues that could potentially affect aviation and the airport. We do this through participation in industry groups. Claire is the chair of the U.S. Contract Tower Policy Board. I'm on the Florida Airports Council. Rob is the chair of the Airports Council's Noise Abatement Committee. So we are very involved with the industry, and that's how we track these things. On the federal level, good news, we have a speaker.
Yes.
So thankfully, that whole House debacle wasn't holding up the FAA reauthorization part, because the House passed their package over the summer. It was largely bipartisan. There wasn't anything too controversial. The things airports were concerned about, we were able to get out of the package. It's just been held up on the Senate side, largely over issues regarding to the amount and types of training required to fly for the airlines. Hopefully, they're starting to see a little bit of movement in that, and they can get the reauthorization approved in both houses by the end of the year, when the existing FAA funding will run out. That FAA needs to be reauthorized because unless they have a minimum of 3 months of authorization to spend, they cannot write grants. And if they cannot write grants, we can't do a lot of the projects. So hopefully we'll get another 5-year reauthorization there. Some of the other issues on the federal level also bleed over into the state level. On the state level, the big thing airports are kind of concerned about is the SB 102, the Live Local Act. That's a great act. Everyone agrees we need more affordable housing in Florida. The only problem is when you're limiting the minimum height to that of the closest building within 1 mile of a particular location, that, oh, by the way, is commercial and industrial, which used to be compatible for airports because there's not people living there. You don't have a noise issue. Tallest building on a lot of airports is a 200-foot tall air traffic control tower. Now, put that right off the end of the runway, think University Commons or what we have over here on this end, that could significantly impact what we currently have as instrument approaches and departures to the airport. I've been following that on the city level as well. Most of their projects I don't foresee any issues with, but we are looking to try to get some sort of carve out that will protect approaches at the airport, because there was existing legislation at the state level to protect airport approaches, but this sort of said, yeah, but we don't care about that. We're just going to do this. We're looking to get that old legislation back into effect. We do participate in many industry fly-ins. I'll be flying up with the, well, not flying up, we always get made fun of as the airport councils that we all drive to Tallahassee, but November 7th, the Airports Council is having their legislative summit, so we'll be meeting with the members of both the Senate and the House on the Hill, talking to them about our issues. And the following week, Ms. Bennett will be participating in a flying up to Washington, D.C. to meet with Customs and Border Protection agents and leadership. Hopefully, we can avoid getting a surprise like we had in the package earlier. This meeting. Rob will be attending the chamber fly-in in January, start of the legislative session, and I'll also be attending the AAA and FAC fly-in in DC in March.
The budget item that the
budget.
request for 100,000. Yeah.
Fortunately, they have a tendency to do that, but we'd like to see a little more, heads up. But if you have any questions about any of the specific issues mentioned, I'll gladly go into larger detail.
So first of all, very thorough report and happy to see us following these things. I want to be clear on something. On our opening paragraph here, we say that we have leadership positions in these various entities. Does that mean board positions? We are on the board of all three. So we have high profile and clear line of sight. I think we'll get to another topic adjacent to this shortly, but I'd like to make a suggestion. I think that these are interesting things for us to follow, important things for us to follow. If we could create, again, a kind of grid that has two factors to it. One would be, so imagine you have the name here, FAA reauthorization. The next column would be a summary of what the bill is. But the next would be a threat assessment. One, how much of a threat is it? So take the contents itself and go, this could be bad. That would be red. And then the next piece is the next component of that threat assessment is, does it have momentum or not? So that when we look at this and we say, oh, there's something that could be really bad, it's red or green or yellow, but it has no momentum for whatever reason. It's proposed, it's not getting the backing, blah, blah, whatever. So a threat assessment of the major issues that you are following, I think would be really valuable to us. So if you happen to report on it every month, that's great, but it could be something that is in our packet. We just look at it.
So
it's
I'm
red.
sure what you're saying. Are you saying for proposed legislation that could be a threat
Yeah.
to the airport?
Yeah.
I just, have we always discussed this annually? I don't remember having this as a topic in the past.
We just as a staff board, since Mr. Now's been on the board, in coordination with Mr. Now. But this is the first time we brought it to you. We've given some of the nature of some of the topics that we are monitoring as a team, and just the level of engagement. We thought it'd be interesting to bring it to you so that you have some idea of what we're working on.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Cheryl's saying is a good idea. My concern is is it so fluid and ever changing that it's just, is it possible to keep on top of?
Well, I think if you're on the board, that means you've probably gone to monthly meetings or something. So that at least it would be, at this point in time, this is where we are. You're going to know, be able to assess the threat on the content right up front. Yeah, you could have amendments, but that's pretty much what it is. So you'll go down this list of half a dozen or more and be able to go red, yellow, green very quickly, and will likely not change again unless amendments happen, occur. And then the other is just this is monthly. And it typically would be done, I would think, after your board meetings or whatever influx of information these three individuals are getting, because they're on three different boards who follow this stuff. And I think it's also extraordinarily timely as we get to our next topic.
Yeah.
Which is the Lewis Longman Walker proposal. And I will note that we obviously have made an investment in time and money in our staff, bringing them, elevating them, as we said, is our responsibility as a good employer, right? To give them an opportunity to improve themselves, to learn more, and to be of greater value to the organization. So this is a way of reporting back to us. And I think providing some value that we can handle in-house, at least in the short term.
I mean, if we go with the, to your point, Cheryl, if we go with the full package here, whatever it's called in the next topic, is that something that Lewis and Longman can track? Because one of the reasons I brought it up is this just something that's going to be burdensome on with staff time, or is it something relatively easy to stay on top of? Yeah.
This is what we are tracking.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sure we can find some way to make it visual.
Right.
State
Just
level.
like green,
I mean,
yellow, red, or something.
it would probably take 2 hours to put the grid together. And once you have, it, and this is what we did all the time. And then, yeah, you get
That's
exactly what it is.
Well,
That's what that-
so it points you in different directions. Do you lobby against it? Do you just prepare financially for it? Is there something that's a risk,
Exactly.
management items? Right.
some you can, some you can't.
Right.
Then we can try. That's where I see the value of being in an organization where we can go to them. And then we're not going to affect legislation at the federal level. But council of airports can, and
Yeah.
then there's 1,000 airports going
And we're
instead of one.
Yeah.
So, but we can direct our staff to say, okay, let's work on this, find out what's going on.
No, this way. Three senior staff people, on board positions, all looking at these types of things. It's good for us, it's good for them. And I guess my next statement goes again to the next topic, and we need to think about, there's some redundancies there. I think there are certainly some things that LW can do for us, and we know which one it is. But I think we need to give staff a chance to prove what they can do here.
Is this something that we'll do report on a monthly basis?
I think it might be dependent on the month. Certain, like the state issues, for instance, really are only in play for 2 months out of the year when the legislature is in session. The federal issues are a little bit more annualized, but then there's still some, month-long recesses, 2-month-long recesses. So if there's a major change in something, we can certainly bring it back. But to the point, we can certainly maintain something of a grid, something of a tracking sheet that whether or not we present it each month, we can have it available in case the board member is curious. We can always just have something ready to send.
Suppose that, say by the next board meeting, you put the basic one together, which we just said probably 2 hours worth of time. Turns out to be more than that, and make it the time after the board meeting after. Give it the threat assessment that we talked about, and then maybe quarterly you include it. Or if there's any major issue that you need to be aware of, you would do that anyway. So that'll keep it in front of us, but not take too much time. And you don't even have to report on it. Put it in the package and say, hey, you'll see, there's no change since last time. No red. We don't have
Agenda item.
Yeah, we have a
yeah,
column.
instead of agenda items. We don't like noise. We don't need.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Anything else? Moving on to item G, as mentioned, discussion on legal counsel services. Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a follow-up to a presentation that was made before the board by counsel Louis Loman and Walker at the August meeting regarding some additional services and support that they are capable of offering to the BRA as an organization. Unfortunately, Mr. Lyon was not able to be here in person, but he is with us telephonically. And so he's available to make a presentation to you and answer any questions that you may have in addition to the materials that he has provided. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Clara, and good evening, everyone. First, I'll just give you a brief legislative update.
Chris, we are not hearing you. Are you on mute?
No, ma'am, I am not muted.
Stand by for one moment while we work out the technical issue.
Okay.
Saying something so you can.
Test,
Can you test?
test,
No,
Test.
still none.
test.
Your decibel levels are going.
Here, what I can do, I can call him on the speakerphone.
Okay.
And then we should be able to communicate that way. So I'm going to call you on your cell phone, Chris.
Okay.
You just want to do it from speaker?
Seems like he can hear us.
He can hear us.
Yeah, so it must be on.
Hello?
Yeah, mute your side, Chris. Turn off your volume on your computer. Turn off the computer volume and mute your computer mic. And we should be good.
Okay, how about that?
Yay!
All right.
Yeah, out of here.
Well, as I started today, or mouthing, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Clara. Good to see everyone, even if it is by video again. Just real quickly, I did want to kind of add on to Scott's legislative update. We just finished our third week of committee weeks up here. There are 7 committee weeks leading into session where they start getting the beginnings of their work done. And we have, I guess, 4 more coming up. For those that haven't heard, they have just announced a special session, which will occur the week of November 6th, to deal with all kinds of issues, including hurricane relief from Hurricane Idalia, which hit the Gulf Coast a month or so ago, adding some more money to the My State Florida Home Program for anybody that's down there that's been looking to upgrade, harden your home with things. This is a state program where you can get some assistance from the state to fortify your home. And then several things trying to, as a state, address the horrific things that recently occurred in Israel. And there's a number of things: support for Israel, expanded sanctions against terrorist regimes, and additional security infrastructure to guard against anti-Semitic violence and hate crimes here in the state of Florida, particularly at Jewish day schools, which are deemed extremely vulnerable. So things are happening as we speak. I know Scott says things only happen in a 2-month session. It's not quite that easy. A lot of stuff gets done during committee weeks. So we're getting geared up for that. Backing up to August, and as a reminder, sort of how this item came to you. After we had a successful session last year, passing a local bill for the airport authority, I was sitting around one day, actually, as boring as it may sound, thumbing through the state budget and seeing what kind of interesting nuggets were in that 500-page, $110 billion monstrosity.
And I started noticing a bunch of airport projects that got funded. And so I reached out to Amy and she arranged a call with Clara and Scott. And we talked about, did the airport have any funding needs that, for things that might be outside of existing grant programs? Something specific that you all might have that perhaps you could be interested in seeking some state funding on. We talked about that. We also talked about a broader representation that would include working on a specific budget project, but then also monitoring other legislative happenings and reporting on those, and if necessary, engaging on them. So I appeared at the August meeting and discussed this. There were some questions asked that I tried my best to answer. But ultimately, the decision was to table it and to come back at a later meeting. So here I am. I have presented a more detailed proposal, trying to answer some of the questions that I heard at the August meeting. I won't read my proposal to you, obviously, because you all can all read, and that drives me nuts when people do that to me. I'll hit the high point. One of the things I mentioned was, why does the airport authority need its own lobby? And one of the things that I always point out is it's great to be a member of statewide groups like the Airports Council or the Association of Special Districts, because talking to an airport just doesn't come off right, but from a 40,000-foot view, they understand issues that affect all airports or all special districts. But a statewide association like that can't understand what's happening at each one of its members' operations. And so one of the things a lobbyist can do is we can look at every bill and every amendment filed with a specific view on how it might affect the airport authority specifically, not just airports in general. So, that's one reason that a number of airports in Florida have their own lobby. Obviously, we talked about it, the idea of seeking a specific budget request where the state could help fund some project that is needed at the airport to help relieve some of the financial burden from the authority. In talking to Clara, there's been a couple ideas thrown out there, a stormwater management project that would, to my understanding, help free up some airport space for actual money-making operations. But that they come with a significant price tag, and perhaps are cost prohibitive for the airport to fund itself. Looking through the projects that I saw in last year's budget, I think there were 11 different projects that range from as low as $500,000 to $4 million. They total $28 million, and every one of those projects survived the governor's veto. So this legislature, this governor seems to like airports and want to help airports out. So, that was an idea that perhaps that is, a stormwater management project. There's not a state grant program for that. So this would have to be separate and apart for that. There was also mentioned to me an airport-wide traffic management study. I guess this is a situation that recently occurred with a tenant letting its site plan lapse, and that would come with a sizable expense having to put one of these studies together. That's something that I don't think there's a grant program for that might be a perfect thing to ask the legislature for some help. So, that's a sort of an example of a specific targeted thing that we could work on for the airport authority with a specific goal in mind. From the broader perspective, and I think one of the questions that came up last time was what kind of return on investment could we see from a proposal like this? As I stated in my proposal on page 6, pretty easy to calculate it if you get an appropriation done, a budget request done. If we were to use one of those stormwater management systems at a cost of $2 million, and if my fee were $60,000, that'd be a 3,333% return on your investment. There's no guarantees, obviously, but we had great success representing special districts and getting appropriations. We went 5 for 5 last session. It's a little more difficult to calculate the return on investment for, monitoring all legislation. Each session, there's roughly 2,000 bills filed. As of today, we have 265 bills filed. So about 10% of the total bills that'll be filed, or I guess 90% still haven't been filed. So there's a lot yet to come. We don't even know what's coming. And there's roughly double that many amendments that get filed each year. So 4,000 or so amendments. So it's really difficult at this point to tell you what kind of opportunities or threats are out there this early in the process. And the problem is you won't know that until it's happened or too late, and it may be too late to do anything about it. So, what I've done is, the other thing I've done is I actually have provided proposed letters of engagement that would detail what would occur under each proposal. In some, the first proposal is for an appropriation project only, $48,000. Again, that's a targeted effort to try to get a budget request done. And then the second proposal is for what I call a comprehensive representation, which would include monitoring all legislation, all legislative activities, providing regular reports back to you. Typically, what I do is provide weekly reports during session and after each committee week to let you know what's occurred during that last week, because things do move very fast during the state legislative session. It would include helping you all set up meetings. I heard Scott coming to town on, I think he said November 7th. If he needed assistance getting to meetings with key legislators or staff, I would help with that. It would include engaging with the Airport Council to see what they're working on, where we can help the team, perhaps identifying issues that they haven't identified. And the same would go to the Association of Special Districts, working with them on anything that might affect you as a special district, or bringing to their attention things that might affect special districts. It would also include the comprehensive proposal would also include working on the budget request. So you get the benefit of that, and for only $12,000 more, I won't get two free. You could also have that monitoring and engaging on the policy issues of the day. So, in sum, I tried to bring a little more meat on the bone, if you will, a little more detail to the proposal. Try to answer some of your questions that I heard last time. At this point, if you have any questions or need clarification on anything, I'd be happy.
Randy?
Yeah, a couple questions. And I'm not sure if I direct this at Chris or the board or the staff, but do we view this as something that we would be doing every year? Is seeking an appropriation, or is this kind of a one and done, or does it depend on our success? I mean, what would be the future of this if we went ahead with this beyond year one?
If that's the question for me, I would say that's completely up to the board. The one thing I can guarantee is if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. But if you all wanted to try for an appropriation this year and we were successful, there is nothing that bars you from coming back next year and asking for something else. I have a client right now that this will be 3 years running. We have asked for an appropriation project. Likewise with the under the comprehensive approach, that would include monitoring legislative happenings in the off season, in between sessions, and identifying any of those issues, setting meetings in the off season, anything like that. But I think it's really up to what the board wants to do. I think it's up to the needs of the airport as to whether you see this being a multiple year endeavor.
And just thinking of that, Randy, it goes back to what Cheryl was saying earlier. I guess we'd have to wait for the master plan to tell us what are the needs, what are the long-term needs year by year out, whatever that is going to be 20 years, almost 20 years, to see if it will be ongoing, because we haven't always had that many projects or that expensive.
Right.
Yeah, we've gotten them through grants, right? Most of them funded, I guess.
Was
all
there
of them.
another one? Was there another project that you were?
Besides the,
Our discussion as a team, as a staff, with you yet, that's what we wanted to talk about tonight is that we would seek non-traditional sources of funding. As Scott mentioned, the project list that is derived from the master plan would allow us, would give us eligibility for federal and state grant funding. Now, the value of something like this would be if there was a state funded grant or project that we would want to accelerate, then we could try this route. But our recommendation as management staff is, and I think that that's what I heard Chris say earlier, is that we would pursue non-traditional sources. So we're not in essence competing against ourselves. So if we already have a pretty reliable and dedicated source of aviation grants, that we can continue to go through that normal process, unless there's a project that is programmed for 6 years down the road that we feel is so pressing and so important, and our DOT agency cannot fund sooner, then we could pursue this. That was why we identified the Airport Road Stormwater System project, because it is not likely to compete for aviation funding. It's not federally eligible, so it would be state funding. So that's checkbox number one. And the checkbox number two is it's not likely to be eligible for aviation funding. And three, the dollars are pretty significant. That $2 million that's referenced in this proposal for the year one would be a first and multi-year need, because we're talking about a system that goes all the way down Airport Road. So each one of those ponds is about $2 million. So this would be a multi-year concept in and of itself. So if we're successful in year one, then it would be worthwhile to move forward with multi-years, the way that it's programmed. And you'll recall this came out of the strategic plan in 2020, 2019.
So just the second part of my question. So, I mean, really, there are two questions that are separate here that we need to answer. One, and you know, I'm on the surface, I'm more inclined to, you know, let's attempt to get the appropriation, because that's really measurable, and it, you know, the lobbyist piece, I don't know, is that, you know, do special districts, do airports our size, do they, you know, have hired lobbyists normally? I mean, is this in Jim? I mean, I know you did this for a living.
yeah.
Some do, and they were articulated here, and Clara has told us that, you know, some of our comrades out there do. But I guess my observation, and it was apropos that this happens to be the first time we've gotten this legislative report from the staff, is starting months ago, we've already positioned staff to get into this space. And I think if we follow kind of a less is more type of thing, you know, approach, and say, well, it is clear what the return on investment would be if you're putting $48,000, you know, into a $2 million, then it's even more than the 3,000% that is mentioned here. And as Clara mentioned, it's a multi-year. So next year,
Yeah.
we'll have the same opportunity. And next year, we will also have the opportunity to assess the capabilities in-house. Were there opportunities that were lost? Or are there things that using our dashboard and risk assessment, we got two things in the red here. We got one, you know, we need to get on this. Then maybe we move to the 60,000. But to answer the second piece of your question about if you do this 1 year, it is, you know, at 60,000. And you don't measure the success. Correct me if I'm wrong. We lived in this, you know, this sector for a very long time of lobbying efforts in a year. You might have a really slow year and you think, oh, it's not worth it, but things are percolating and you've got the relationships and that type of thing. It is, so you need to view it, it's a multi-year type of commitment. You probably would not do it for 1 year, you'd do it for multi-years, and it would be an ongoing line item in our budget. Not to say that that's a bad thing, as long as we're doing it with eyes wide open. and we see the value, and perhaps we're not getting quite the value that we thought we could or should or whatever from our in-house efforts. Maybe they just, have other things to do that are more important. Then we'll be in this chair next year doing this, making the same assessment, and we can go forward with that.
Bill?
You're right. I'm also thinking, I was gonna say what Tim said, I want to second what he said. My opinion is, we get the master plan complete, which is near term, very near term. And quantify what we're looking to get, what may or may not be available, what might be state, federal, or oddball funding, and then make a decision. I think, my opinion is it's too soon to make a decision,
I would,
too open-ended.
if you don't mind, Chair.
Cheryl?
I would propose, I'll throw this out, maybe this is the appropriate time if the discussion is concluded, that I think it is kind of a no-brainer for the stormwater. And that's now, that could happen this next session. And it will still happen, assuming we get it. We would still have the opportunity for phase 2, yet another million. So we don't need to wait for the first 48. I'm going to propose, let's go, let's get that train rolling. But the piece that we assess are all the other initiatives, the lobbying piece of it that would be ongoing. So we take the rest of this next 12 months to assess that and to finish the master plan, because there may be several other assessment types of activities that we then roll into maybe an even greater proposal for Lewis Longman Walker.
And you're saying that because we know the stormwater is in the master plan, right?
Well, and we can't wait.
Getting that right?
You lose it this year.
Right, we're waiting a whole year. Yeah.
But that's Melville.
That's the.
So it is confusing because we just talked about a stormwater project, and so that's air side. So it's the challenge with this, the project that we're talking about that Travis mentioned, that is under works is air side. That is eligible for federal grant funding. It's currently under design. In fact, we submitted pre-applications for the construction air side, and we have state funding for design for air side and land side. The project that we talked about in the context of a state appropriation outside of our traditional grant funding mechanism is land side along Airport Road, which is not likely to compete for aviation dollars.
Master plan, that was.
It's identified in our project. It's not a project list in the master plan. I don't think it's not in our CIP because it's not a master plan project.
But does it have value that matriculates?
It doesn't
to the
need to
airport?
be for the point. Sorry,
It has value that matriculates to the airport.
of course. So then the recommendation that I have made to Lewis Longman Walker is to consider this project specifically because it's outside of our normal funding scheme. And it is also, it would allow us to have some potential new land for non-aviation development or other development on the property. That's why that's what was identified in the strategic.
Right. That's the long view.
Yes.
Remember from early on, we said, looking forward 5 years, 10 years, where's our opportunity to grow? This is part of that.
Gene, you had a question?
Two questions. One, if I agree with Mel, we need to identify what our missions or where we want to go. But regarding the stormwater, I would like to get more information on that. The risk versus reward and expense versus income on that project, because it is a considerable if we roll into that. The other thing is, if we choose to go with this because of the timing up in Tallahassee, when would be the appropriate time to initiate this?
Chris?
Since it's only a 1 year.
Yeah. That's Chris, can you answer that for us?
I can, and as mentioned at the August meeting, I believe, the deadline for appropriations request for this coming session is November 14th. So we're up on it. You know, I've spoken with Clara about that. It can be done. You know, I think there's, 3 weeks is a lifetime in legislative world. So I think, provided that Scott and Clara can, we can get the information put together, I can reach out to the legislators in the area. I think we could have it put together. I do have I'm pretty certain in my proposal, I put a 30-day termination clause. So if something were to happen and, we couldn't get a sponsor because of the late nature, we couldn't pull the information together in time, obviously there's a way out. But time is short. But I do think there is still time, and I did mention at the August meeting, there's some reasons why this year might be a good year to try this, relative to the legislators that represent your area. There's some political reasons why the leaders might want to be helpful to this area. Anyway, that's a long way to answer that. The deadline's November 14th. It's short, but there's still time to get it done.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Mitch, you had a question? And then we'll go to Sharon.
Yeah, a couple, questions. Anyway, first one I have is, so getting back to one of the purposes, at least the specific need would be to get money, 2 million, be ready to fill in one of the ditches that are there. So to your point, Cheryl, we could do one, maybe there's value in doing that, but it kind of seems like, we're all in, we're doing it. We need to think big. So that's the first thing I would say. I'm not 100% certain I am aware or understand exactly what we would do with that additional land. Okay, I know that it'd be great to have it. We talked about, we only have this much room and we can lease more, maybe not, and we can move buildings around and stuff. But at the end of the day, to add some acreage would be good, provided we can actually use it. And so I don't even know if we can. So it would be kind of like, all right, speaks to my second point. So let's just say we get the $2 million. And then we find out as we're going through the process, can't use it or it doesn't fit us. We only have the right, we win the right to the 2 million. We're not getting 2 million, correct?
Yes, I think that's fair to say that if you get it put into the budget, you have 1 year to obligate that money. If something were to happen on your end and you couldn't get that done within the year, yes, it's the old use it or lose it scenario.
Okay.
Now, I will say that that doesn't mean you're out of the box, because when I mentioned that there were 11 projects in last year's budget, 2 of them, interestingly, related to the Brooksville Tampa Bay Regional Airport. And it was runway rehab for $2 million and a technology center multimodal project for $3 million. That was actually money that was appropriated the prior year that they must not have been able to obligate. And they put it, it's called back of the bill. They basically say, we're going to refund that project in the coming year. So technically, yes, if you don't use it in the year, you lose it. But there are opportunities like this Brooksville thing where you can get it funded in the following cycle. So you can have basically out of the money that was left over because it wasn't spent.
Get it up to the plate one more time. Maybe. So we all have to proceed knowing that we're investing in this.
Yeah.
And it can happen. It could be like, sound of, toilet flood.
John Farragut is here with Garver. That project is currently under design. You mentioned that we had.
Which is that project that we're talking
The undergrounding of the stormwater systems along Airport Road, in addition to the air side that is federally eligible. So the state is participating in the design for both the air side portion and the land side portion. They're not the feds, the FAA, not participating in the land side portion.
So we have, okay.
And that design project will be complete in February.
We're already in discussion get some money towards towards the land side.
We have funding for the design from the state already encumbered, and he's getting paid from that, right?
Is there a route for us outside of using the lobby efforts to get funding for what we're looking to get from the state? Is not the fact, because I know it's not.
Construction programming is probably, I think it's in 6 years, or I think it's probably 2020. I don't have the CIP in front of me, the JSIP, but I think it's 2029-ish, 28, 27. Yeah, it's in the outer years. So there's a path towards some state funding. This would allow us to bring it early.
One of my questions, but not so much complete past the drainage system. It was, do we know that we can actually use the land that we created if we want to? So maybe we end up having these beautiful underground, which there's value there.
Right.
I get it, but at the end of the day, we've created essentially a nice grassy area and maybe some no use for it. The last question that I have would be, how do you come up with the fee? How is that determined? Is it hourly? Is it just based upon some value predicated upon what the amount that you're looking to get? Just tell me. And I full transparency, I'm an attorney, so you know.
It's a little bit of all of the above. So first off, I'm also an attorney, but in the legislative industry, the standard is that you do a flat monthly fee. Don't bill services aren't billed hourly. And how we come up with that fee is typically looking at the scope of the engagement, how much effort it's going to take to try to be successful, how far up the chain of command you're going to have to go to get it accomplished. In the case of an appropriation, how much money are you asking for? Obviously, if you're asking for $250,000, that's easier to get than $2.5 million. So it's really a little bit of all of it. I mean, the example, I think I might have used it in August, was, could it be done hourly? And, the example I always give is, I think my current hourly rate is, I don't know, $500, let's say. And let's say I get a meeting with the Speaker of the House for your issue, the 10-minute meeting. I can bill as billing hourly. I bill 0.6 of an hour times $500. I think I can't do that. No, I don't. I bill 0.1 of an hour, 0.2 of an hour. I get $100 out of that meeting. That the meeting with the speaker is worth much more than $100. And so that's why you really can't, in this process, it's about relationships. It's about who you can access, and it really can't be adequately compensated through a straight hourly basis. Also, one of the reasons we do it is we do work with a team. I have better relationships with some members. My partner, Lori Killinger, has better relationships with others. So we both work on each other's clients. We work as a team, truly. And I don't know about your clients, but, most of our clients don't like being double billed for effort. And so when you work as a team like that, it would create a lot of double billing, which is just difficult. So again, the industry standard is an hourly or a flat fee basis, typically divided into equal monthly payments. And it's a little bit of all of the above as to how we arrive at the figure, at the fee. And a little bit of it is sort of what is the industry standard today going. And in my mind, somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 is about the going rate for an appropriation request. And the $60,000 is about the going rate for what I would call a comprehensive approach to it.
Do we, my last question is this, have an obligation to get multiple bids for lobbying it? Like we would for anything else? I'm asking our lawyers, I realize what I just said. But I want to make sure that, somebody doesn't come back and
We don't procure legal services through bid process. It's through a request for qualifications, which was done in 2017, 16, the last time it was done, and there were, I believe there were 10 different firms that presented proposals in the response to qualifications. Lewis London Walker and the team were ranked number 1, and the board selected them based on that process. The current engagement allows for all variety of different legal services and
So
representation.
there's no distinction. Lobby.
Scope is unlimited without having to go back to that process. Describe-
Until we need a new service, then the idea behind the way that the procurement process was established back then was so that it was a one-stop shop, all encompassing legal services through this request for qualifications process that's contained within your procurement code.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat similar when we engaged in the litigation. We came to you with a separate matter so that you would understand the fee structure, and you were saying that you wanted us to take on that specific representation. You know, we're still your lawyers, but we parceled it out because we thought it was unique enough of a piece of representation to give you a separate opportunity to think about it and say, yeah, these are the terms we wanted to proceed under.
And similar to what was done last year, well, on an issue-specific process, which was the local bill.
Ms. Bud?
2 quick observations, probably before we call the question.
Yeah.
One is, I just want to be sure that we understand, I think there is a certain sense of urgency. And it comes primarily from what Chris said last time, and he mentioned this time, and that is, from a political perspective, the sun and the moon and the stars might be aligned politically. That will make it much more likely that we are able to be successful in getting this $2 million. So there are some moving parts out there that we will probably get some support from people for various reasons that might not be there next year. Now, I know I'm summarizing, but is that approximately correct, Chris?
That was very well stated.
Okay, so just want to be sure that we say, don't go, yeah, kind of having an angst here, so let's just postpone this. Don't kick this bucket, guys, because it might not be there. One more observation, please. And the next had to do with what I was hearing is, well, we don't know what we would do with the land if we got it. So in other words, you get it filled in, you got it. Guys, how much time have we spent in the 10 years that we have been on the board, Gene, talking about if we had more land, what can we do? How can we beg, borrow, and steal? How can we go over to FAU? If you build it, they will come. It's as if saying, we have an opportunity to manufacture some gold here, but I don't know what I'm going to spend it on. So let's figure out what we're going to spend this gold on before. It's going to be, land is gold. Land is gold in landlocked airport.
But I agree, but ideally, I mean, Mel brought it up, Gene brought it up, Mitch
Yeah.
touched on it. We'd like to have been able to vet this a little bit more thoroughly and
Yes,
have
that's
more
why-
answers.
Yeah, that's why I say, you got to do what feels right,
Yeah,
but we're making gold, we're making
Yeah.
land. Maybe that won't be there next year. Maybe we won't be able to get it through next year. You'll have to, and there's an urgency to make your decision, yay or nay.
Great. Mel?
Western roll call vote.
All right.
I would,
I just had one more question then.
Sure.
So Chris, haven't worked on appropriation, so the process, now that we're already almost in November, we've got a deadline on November 14th. You'll remember last year with the local bill, the squeeze was really at the local level with the city and county folks and the county delegation, making sure we got everything together by the deadlines before the session started. So in an appropriations bill, do we need approvals, support? What do we need from the local level? Because it's going to take time to develop any document, I guess, that we have to submit to show that we need the 2 million for this program.
Sure. So the appropriations project for process is a little different. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
There's no bill filed, unlike last year with the local bill, there's not an actual bill filed. What's required is in the House and the Senate, there is a form. I think I've already sent it to Clara and Scott, so they're familiar with what it looks like. The form between the House and the Senate, roughly 95% identical, very similar form.
but it basically just lays out why you're requesting it. How much local match is being put against the state match, who's sponsoring it, how it will benefit the area, all these different things. You have to have a House sponsor and a Senate sponsor for an appropriation request. So in this particular case, I would look to Representative Gossett Seidman and Senator Berman, who represents the actual footprint of the airport. They submit those. And then from there, the process, really, it's all a black box. It's all behind closed doors. But you essentially, normally what you do is you start working with the subcommittee, the appropriations subcommittee chairman, they get the first bite at the budget apple and trying to convince them to include funding in their budget. From there, you work up the food chain to the full appropriations chairman, which is Representative Tom Lee out of Volusia and Senator Doug Broxton out of Escambia. You try to work with them. And then ultimately what happens is about week 4 or week 5 session, the House will publish its budget, the Senate will publish its budget, and they are invariably different. And over the last 2 to 3 weeks of session, they appoint a negotiating committee to basically negotiate the differences in the two budgets. And that's really where the rubber meets the road, because it's a rare project that gets fully funded in both budgets coming out to that process. Really, the work gets done in that last 2 to 3 weeks in budget in the negotiation, where you try to get your project fully funded in both sides. And then from there, they usually pass that budget. There's a constitutional requirement that the budget has to be published and distributed to the legislators at least 72 hours before they can vote on it. So usually it's Tuesday of the last week of session when they publish it. And then they usually, the last thing they do before adjourning on Friday is they pass the budget. It then goes to the governor, who has line item veto authority. So unlike the local bills, Jim, you remember last year when we were fighting to make sure the governor didn't veto our bill. The governor, I guess he can veto the entire budget, but he can also in the budget, he can veto specific items. So after the legislature passes it, you're then working with the governor's office to ensure that your project survives the veto. So from a local perspective, all that's really needed is a House and Senate sponsor. And it has its own separate process, with a lot of it being done out of the public eye, to be perfectly honest.
Understood. And so then the last question I have is for the staff is, I assume all our tenants would be in favor of this kind of approach. If we move it up six years or 9 years, whatever.
Yeah.
I see it from the 1 or 2. Okay, yeah, so.
Good. Well, very robust discussion here. So we need a motion in order to have a roll call vote.
Was that what Cheryl?
Yes, what I would propose is that the motion be that we move forward with an appropriations only engagement at this time.
I'll second.
With LLW.
Yes, with
That's second.
First proposal or the second?
the first only at 48,000.
Yeah, 40.
What is the dollar that they got?
48,000.
48,000
Yeah,
a year for the year.
and then monthly installments every month.
Okay, we're gonna have a roll call vote. Ms. Landers?
Yes.
Yes,
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Chris, very much.
I have one question for Chris before he
Yep.
leaves. So is there and maybe this is, staff as well, is there and I'm trying to think of a better word, but I'm going to use the word angle on this. Are there environmental conservation benefits of doing this that we could make this, part of even, instead of the stormwater, the environmental or the Conservation Act, that, those words get people's attention today?
I think one of the biggest benefits we're be being able to treat the water more thoroughly so that the water that passes through those systems, right now it's a pond filtrate, it's sort of on its own through the pond. This would actually be, I believe, right, Don, a better way of treating the water before it's discharged.
It would be, it says it's, so it's more of a water pond than a pond thing, and the other thing, when you talk air side, particularly in ditch sections, like, it's a big safety net. I mean, this road safety
Yeah.
is.
So yeah, absolutely. That's one of the elements. And as I may have mentioned in some of our individual discussions, we right now have, of course, the project happening at Atlantic Aviation. But we do have other conversations that we engage in on a regular basis with our tenants. So they are all seeing some benefits of this.
Chris, did you have anything else? Yeah.
I was just gonna add, I'm glad you mentioned that. I've not even thought about environmental benefits. The more boxes like that you can check, the better likelihood of success your project has. And this one, unlike like most of the other water quality or water quantity projects that are get funded in the year, this one also has an economic benefit on top of the environmental benefit. So it's starting to check more and more boxes. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm really glad to hear that. In closing, I'll just thank the board for the time. It's been 2 months worth, and I'm sorry it's taken so long, but I really appreciate your confidence. And I will be in touch with Clara and Scott tomorrow to get working on this thing.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. We look forward to working with you and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, great. Item 10, authority board member requests and reports. Included as item A is the meeting schedule for January through December 2024. If you can review that and see if there's any known conflicts and get back to Ms. Bennett, that would be great. Any other items that the board would like to discuss?
Yeah, this stormwater, that there's a lot developed to that, and I certainly have a great interest in learning more as soon as we can, and so
I would agree with that.
whatever you can bring to us, I greatly appreciate it. This cost, it's a new project for all of us, and I have a lot of questions.
Mr. Folden, I'd be happy to send you. It's been a few years since the study was done as part of the strategic plan. So I'd be happy to forward that to you. What was done in 2019, 2020 timeframe as part of the master plan. So the strategic plan. So you have an idea of what the vision was that was established back then. Sort of, and some of the technical aspects are included in there as well that were recommended and reviewed at the time. So I'd be happy to send that to you.
In addition to
refresh your
that,
memories.
Here,
But
Clara, if you could do a little summary for us, and by that I mean like this much, but we're talking, as Chris would say, the more boxes we can check off to answer the question, why are we doing this? What is the benefit to the community, the environment? Get us some stats on that. The water goes through on the pond and it's only this good. The water goes through after we put it, it's this good. So that with some real factoids, because the people on the board, we may need some talking points too. And somebody says, well, what'd you do that for? It's 48,000 down the drain. We're not going to use it. Yeah, you could. Here's the benefit to the environment. Here's the benefit to the economy and the benefit to the airport. Those are three big things that we already said to Chris. We'll give you. Give us those talking points as well.
Down the drain, no pun intended.
Okay, so maybe early next week. I'll
Yeah.
send that to you.
We should,
Along with the report.
we should be a little further along in the design by the November, definitely by the December meeting, and maybe we could get some preliminary designs for at least the first pond would be attached.
Pursuing this route, our perspective of the team is that, again, whether or not this competes for aviation dollars, we at least have a place to start on that multi-phase project going forward.
And one more thing on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Remind us, Clara, of what is happening at the mayor's ball and what we are receiving.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Bud. So we're so honored to receive the recognition at this year's, I think it's the 9th annual Mayor's Ball. Rotary Club who puts together the downtown Boca Raton Rotary Club. We are receiving the George Long Award in recognition of our role in the community as an organization, and as well as in recognition of the airport's 75th anniversary as a public airport. here in South Florida in Boca Raton.
And we have 2 tables.
The event is on the 11th,
Uh-huh.
Memorial of Veterans Day, excuse me. We do have 2 tables. We have some distinguished guests among our tenant community who will be joining us, as well as some city representatives from city management. So it should be a very nice event.
Sold out.
Total of 21 people presenting the year.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Speaking of events, I'd like to thank Ms. Landers and the team for the great FAU tailgate event that was held last Saturday. And it was very well done. And all the participation. And then well, also some of us will be attending the Chamber of Commerce Gala Saturday and the passing of the gavel. It's on the 9th.
And that's in November.
Exactly. So lots going on. It's that time of year.
Wednesday. That is 18th. It is a city holiday. The airport does not take it as a holiday, but it is a city holiday and they're asking. Yeah.
There should be no impact to the city since we no longer have our meetings there, but as a courtesy to us, they wanted to let us know. It is a city holiday, it's a federal holiday, but it is not an airport authority holiday. So it's your wishes as to whether keep it or move it.
I mean, that this happens to fall on
That day.
the
Yeah,
day that I'd say keep it.
I agree. Good. We'll keep Wednesday, June 19th. Yeah, exactly. Great. Any other member comments? Ms. Landers, any public comment? Any other business coming for the board? And lastly, the board will meet at the master plan workshop here at this location on November 15th at 3 p.m. And then that will be immediately followed at 5 p.m. for our regular November. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Adjourn. Thank you.